If you're confused by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, how about we take a quick look at the history of the two countries? Although this touches on religion, it's by no means a religious post. So about 5,000 years ago, Moses led the Jews, then known as Israelites, out of Egypt where they were enslaved and led them to the Promised Land. So what was the Promised Land? The Promised Land was designated from the Lebanon Mountains in the north to the Nile River in the south, and from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. Thus we get the saying, from the river to the sea. We are now in the year 2024. Now that's 2024 years since the birth of Jesus. Where was Jesus born? He was born in Bethlehem. Where was Bethlehem located? It was located in Palestine, and it still is. If you don't believe in Jesus, the geography, it still stays the same. So where was Palestine located? It was located in the country of Israel. Palestine was like a province within Israel, and it was all ruled at that time by King Herod, although it was soon to be taken over by the Romans. At that time, Palestine was mainly Jewish, but there was a large population of Gentiles, that's non-Jews, who lived in harmony with the Jews. After the death of Jesus, most of the Gentiles became Christians and still lived in harmony with the Jews. But about 500 or 600 years later, along came the Muslims. Battles began between the Christians and the Muslims, as it did with much of Europe. Sometimes the Christians were in charge, sometimes the Muslims were in charge, and the Muslims finished up in charge. But after World War II, displaced Jews moved to Israel, where they were guaranteed safety and security by NATO. Now in the 1960s, Palestinians decided they wanted to be free of Israel and be independent. Along came Yasser Arafat, a nasty little terrorist and chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization known as the PLO. He was responsible for killing hundreds of innocent people, mainly in Europe and Israel. He was responsible for car bombings, suicide bombings, aircraft hijackings, and it was all killing and injuring innocent people who had no connection with his cause. Now in 1988, Palestine was granted independence from Israel and became its own state. So a two-state solution. They governed themselves and were completely free from Israel. But in their first election, who did they elect as their leaders? Only Yasser Arafat and the PLO, but now he was not satisfied with independence. He wanted nothing less than destruction of Israel. And since then, over 5,000 Israelis have been killed by Palestinian violence. Yasser Arafat died on November the 11th, 2004, a significant date. After his death, who did the Palestinians elect to run the country? The leaders of Hamas, the major terrorist group in Palestine. So instead of electing a government that would improve their lives, they voted in the terrorist organization whose sole mission was to destroy Israel. Negotiators say they want a two-state solution. They had a two-state solution until October the 7th, 2023. The only solution acceptable to the Palestinians is a one-state solution, and that means the elimination of Israel. So who are the innocent victims in this conflict? Well, the Israelis. What about the innocent Palestinians? Well, obviously the children. But the Palestinians chose the path that they are on, and they must accept the consequences. It's worth noting that none of the surrounding Muslim countries will accept the Palestinian refugees because they cannot trust them.